Welcome to the UFC 257 Live Before Lock show right here on Awesemo.com. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, we did the show on Thursday, and of course, we've got changes. And it's kind of funny as I was getting ready for the show here earlier today, and I pop on, to look at the odds for, I was really looking at the odds for our new fight, part of this fight card, and that is Frevola now taking on Tsarukyan, and Tsarukyan is an even bigger favorite than what he was when he was supposed to take on Tavares. He's a 7-1 betting favorite.
Yeah, crazy. Thank you guys for joining us. This is like the Super Bowl to me. I am so pumped. Happy to have everybody here. But yeah, we had some issues with the card. Azaitar has made a really silly mistake and made history for the wrong reasons, and now we are left with Frevola taking on Tsarukyan, which is a very, very difficult matchup. And if I was Frevola, you probably don't take that fight. It's probably not the most logical fight to take at this point in his career. Yes, you're hungry for money and you need to get back into the cage and get some cage time. But I mean, come on. Tsarukyan's on a completely different level than Frevola. The odds suggest that they agree with what I'm saying there. I will say that the stylistic matchup isn't as dangerous because Azaitar would go out there and look to finish Frevola early. So you're always worried about getting knocked out. The problem is Tsarukyan's just so well-rounded. He can compete in all areas of the game, Jason.
I will tell you this right now. I question people in the Matt Frevola camp. And I understand he hasn't fought in over a year. I get he needs a paycheck, but I just look, maybe he'll end up proving us wrong in this one. But to me, this is a fight that he should not have taken. If you want to take on someone like Arman, you want 6, 8, 12 weeks prepared for this fight, not 24 hours.
Yeah, I agree. There are certain fights that are okay to take on short notice, and this was like, man, this is desperation, and you're trying to do the UFC a favor and salvage a fight and get in there. Hopefully, you did some negotiating, whether it was financial, but also extension of your contract or potential fights moving forward, because you are doing them a favor in this situation. But thanks for joining us, guys. We've got 400 people. Smash that like button for us. We're here to answer all your questions leading up to lock. I cannot wait, as you can clearly tell, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, of course. I do want to fire off with some questions we got earlier today in our premium Slack channel. First off, Legalized asked us for our single entry GPP approach. Now, when we're talking about, I think it's two different approaches I'm looking at. If we're talking a DraftKings perspective on this one, I'm looking at a couple of fighters that to start my lineup with. First off, it's looking at Conor McGregor in the main event. Another one that I would be looking at is Tsarukyan, is someone that I would definitely consider, and Khalil Roundtree would be another one. That's in terms of GPP on DraftKings, who I would start a single entry with.
Yeah, I get it. I agree with you. The problem with this card, right, is unlike other cards, there are usually some dogs that I love, and some people hit me up and they're like, hey, you took a bold claim and not picking any underdogs. I didn't mean to. You guys know I don't look at the odds. It's the last thing that I do. So I'm not going to change my picks because of the odds. Now, I will target, underdogs in my lineups because it's impossible to create a lineup without 7,000 fighters or 6K at that point. But I prioritize, if I'm taking any dogs, I prioritize the main event with Poirier. Obviously, if he gets finished early, you are going to run into low points. But as the fight progresses, we can't ignore the fact that probably it favors Poirier, especially with the durability and the cardio. Conor inside of 2 rounds is the most dangerous fighter ever. And then, Chandler against Hooker. I was looking at Hooker's resume, and his frame and his style is good to go up against wrestlers, right? But he hasn't really been tested by a true American wrestler. And I still favor Hooker, but I did get a lot of Chandler in my crunches just in case he went to the takedown well. And he could get us some control time. And some people hit me up talking about control time as well, saying it's not that big of a difference. Well, it is when strikers are now kind of devalued based on by the new scoring system. And now you are adding control time on top of takedowns and all that scoring for grapplers.
Yeah, it's now in terms of FanDuel, I've really labeled a couple of fighters on FanDuel that I'm looking at. It is Evelev, I think, has a chance to break the slate on FanDuel. When you look at Nick Lentz, we both know he's going to go for takedowns. Even if you want to go with a low number of 5 takedowns, we've seen Nick Lentz go for 19 takedowns. So that could be a potential break the slate over on FanDuel. I think you got to look at Giuliana Pena the same way. And Brad Tavares is another guy. We really haven't talked about this a lot, but when we talked about low-owned fighters, that could break the slate, Brad Tavares could be that guy.
Yeah, he could be that guy because he's a tough matchup going up against Carlos Jr. Definitely has the experience edge in the UFC. 12-6 overall. His finishing rate sits at 41%, but that's not the best. But if you go and you look back at his past 2 fights, getting knocked out against Emir Shabazian. Shabazian's the real deal, especially on the feet. And then prior to that, Israel Adesanya, went the distance with him and had moments where he looked good and he was hitting the champ. And I think that Tavares, as long as he's able to, stop the takedowns, which is sneaky over on FanDuel, as you mentioned, he could definitely bust the slate. I think Carlos Jr.'s cardio is always in question. I got to a decent amount of Carlos Jr. despite my love for Tavares here, just because you have to find some 7K options on DraftKings you're getting to. And I do think that's a close fight. And Carlos Jr. early on to get a quick finish, he spoke of it in some interviews. It makes sense. But Tavares as the contrarian play, I think I have 23, 24% Tavares in my 150 lineups.
Yeah, and I would tell you, and Carlos Jr. actually is now the betting favorite in that fight. The odds have just completely flipped on that one. But, that's going to be a guy that when we talk about, fighters, because I think we're all leaning on Carlos Jr. as an underdog. What we're talking about DraftKings or on FanDuel. And like Joseph in the YouTube chat says, I have an uncomfortable amount of Carlos Jr. on FanDuel. I'm with you. I have an uncomfortable amount of Carlos Jr. on DraftKings.
Yeah, I agree. I have an uncomfortable amount of several 7K fighters. Chandler's one of them. Carlos Jr. might be second or third on my list. Just in general, I'm not in love with the underdogs. And I think the most common underdog is going to be Amir Al-Bazi here at 7,900. I think that if you're looking at box scores, he has performed well, 107 points, looks for submission finishes. That he's a grappler. The new scoring system favors his style. But on the regional scene, Zhumagulov has really been tested and proven against Ali Bagatinov and some other proven fighters that have made it on the big stage. So I'm a little underweight on Al-Bazi, and that does make me nervous because I know that he represents a tough stylistic matchup for a lot of people, just as relatively green and inexperienced from a strength of schedule standpoint, where Zhumagulov has been tested with some high talent. 92% finish rate for Al-Bazi. You could do worse this week than taking a shot on him. It's a close fight. It's a lighter weight fight, usually not the most finishes.
Of course, right now over at Awesemo.com, we got a great deal for MMA Weekly Pass. You got to take advantage of this deal because it does expire tonight. Get a MMA Weekly Pass for $2.57 when you use the promo code Connor, CONOR. Go to Awesemo.com/promos. You can see it there right up to the screen. Tyler's got it up there for you to where you can sign up for MMA Weekly Pass. $2.57, so you can see what the ownership projections are tonight. You can see Alex's top fighters tool, his projections. There's a reason Alex is the #1 DFS player in the world. These are tools that he uses to create his lineups. So you guys sign up right now for that great pass, $2.57 to get you ready for tonight. And we always talk about you got to know what those ownerships are because that can help you get some leverage on the field, creating that optimal lineup. Another one we got from D Smith earlier was any stacks. To me, the answer is no. I know people are going to look at the main event, Pete, and to me, the only way that works is if it goes into the 4th and 5th round. If this fight's over in 3 rounds, I don't see how stacking Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier makes any sense.
Yeah, well, stacking 3-round fights typically doesn't work out. If you are to stack, it's probably the main event, and I don't hate it because it's a nice way to get different. I think that it's crazy to see where the odds are at for McGregor to finish Poirier, and now where the odds sit for him to win against Poirier. I think that they need to give a little bit more respect for Poirier in this spot. I mean, you think about when McGregor returned against Cowboy Cerrone, how inflated those odds were. I mean, we're kind of looking at almost the same lines. And I think that if Poirier is able to weather the storm in the early flurries of McGregor, things get interesting, right? Maybe he makes McGregor, fatigue a little bit, or maybe he presses him against the cage where he can't really, get his punches off, and that power is not going to be there. Maybe Poirier gets right into McGregor's face. This is MMA fighting, small gloves, and anything can happen, especially at the high end of the sport. So that's why I say prioritize main event, co-main events for underdogs, and a stack would only be for the main event, in my opinion.
I thought one of the interesting things that Daniel Cormier said this week when he's talking about Conor McGregor, he said, everyone talks about Conor's left hand. He goes, well, the thing is you can't be concerned with the left hand. It's what comes before the left hand. He goes, go watch all of Conor's fights. He goes, he'll throw a spinning technique to set up the left hand. He goes, so that's what Dustin Poirier has to be concerned with. The other side of this is, go find me a UFC fighter that's gone on record and picked Dustin Poirier.
I found one. It's Derek Lewis, but I think it's because
he's the one. I literally, because I saw some people were talking about it on social media a little earlier today. Like every fighter is picking Conor McGregor, and and we brought this point on the strategy show is everyone keeps talking about the growth of Dustin Poirier since their first fight 6 years ago. No one's really talking about the growth of Conor McGregor as a fighter. I mean, look, I think in terms of DFS, you can't avoid the main event. Whoever wins this fight, I mean, look, you got to sprinkle in Dustin Poirier in your lineup. You have to, especially at $7,100 on DraftKings. FanDuel is a little bit of a different story. You got to pay up for him. But at $7,100, if Dustin Poirier can win, he will be optimal.
Oh, 100%. Anytime you're a 7K fighter and you win, the likelihood is that you're going to be close to being in the optimal lineup. Now, it's interesting. I think that Poirier represents a very difficult problem for McGregor here because he has been the more active man in the cage. Yeah, McGregor probably has grown and has improved his skills over the years. Same with Poirier, but Poirier definitely holds the experience advantage in the cage. I mean, he's 18-5 in the UFC octagon. McGregor sits at 10-2. I mean, Poirier's fought the who's who, and he has some finishes over Justin Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez, and the list goes on and on. Dan Hooker. I wonder, if Poirier is able to weather the storm. I think that he has a little bit more of a dog in him, whereas McGregor has kind of folded in the past.
Yeah. Let's get some questions over from our premium Slack account. First up, Thalia says, why is so much money going towards Miradov? I think that's a lot of people don't trust the gas tank of Andrew Sanchez. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, Sanchez could get up two rounds to nothing, be dominating. You'll be nervous as can be in that third round.
Yeah, especially if you paid attention to the weigh-ins. You did notice that Sanchez cuts a significant amount of weight and looks zapped, drained, kind of exhausted already before the fight starts. And I don't like seeing that. Obviously, at the ceremonial weigh-ins, he looked better when he was hydrated, as did most of these fighters. But, Muradov is a very unique fighter who possesses great boxing. And Floyd Mayweather has actually, put that stamp on him and it manages him. So, the management team sees something in Muradov, and I think that they see it correct. He's 24-6 overall, does have better defensive wrestling and offensive wrestling to compete in that area of the fight. It's a close fight, and I think you could do worse than Sanchez at 7,600, but I do foresee Muradov getting the win.
The Dayman says, do you have any interest in Frivola at all on FanDuel? No. I think I put him in one lineup just as a dart throw, but I don't like the matchup for him. I don't like it at all.
I mean, he probably doesn't have to worry about getting finished as much as he did in the Azatar fight. Sarukian's finish rate is 67% out of his 15 victories. So, I mean, it's a decent percentage that he gets to finish, but he's not going out there against a crazy knockout threat. And Sarukian will engage in the grappling, engage in the wrestling, and that's kind of where Frivola thrives. So let's kind of pump the brakes on these odds. Sarukian is so much better than Frivola everywhere. But Sarukian missed weight yesterday, guys. Sarukian missed weight. And, that always worries me, especially if the fight does hit the later rounds. Anything can happen. We've seen guys, Herbert Burns, who shouldn't have lost that fight against Daniel Pineda, misses weight, is fatigued, has good moments, ends up getting outworked and finished. Now, I don't think that's going to happen here, but Frivola's worth a couple lineups.
Yeah, I don't like the matchup at all. Tripword says Evelev defended 9 takedowns last time against Grundy and still couldn't break 100 points on FanDuel. Feels like a trap for $23. I understand where you say that. So I went there earlier. These are the last 5 fights for Nick Lentz in terms of takedowns. 0 for 9, 2 for 4, 5 for 19, 2 for 5, 0 for 5. Let's just say he stops 10 or more takedowns. Let's just say he stops 14 takedowns. That's 42 points on FanDuel right there.
Yeah.
Like that to me is now look, when we did the strategy show and I brought up Evelev, I was loving the captain ownership at that point. Captain ownership's come up a little bit. So like to me, that's why, now look, Nick Lentz has to be going for takedown after takedown for that $23 of payoff, but it has a potential to pay off big time for you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a nice FanDuel spot for Evelev here. I think Evelev is a step ahead in all facets of the game. He's a better striker. He's a better grappler, a better wrestler. The submission game is close, though, and it's because I have seen Evelev caught in a head and arm position against his previous opponent, and Nick Lentz really thrives at capturing the neck. So Lentz is a live submission threat. Let's be real. But to beat Evelev for 15 minutes, I don't see that happening. Lentz could get desperate in some situations, going takedown. But, Evelev's in a nice spot. It's just difficult to get too many 9,000 fighters out there because I don't know which underdogs I really have faith in.
Seth over in Slack says, favorite captain not named McGregor on FanDuel.
Well,
the two names, I've already mentioned one name. I think another name you got to throw out there is Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, I like Khalil Roundtree quite a bit. Another guy that I have as a sneaky FanDuel play would be Brad Tavares. Carlos Jr. wants to get the fight on the mat. We spoke about that earlier, how Tavares is in a nice little leverage position here. It's a tough fight. It really is. Now, you have a guy who has a 40% finish rate, but you're trying to get different. And I think putting Tavares in a spot like that definitely gets different. Roundtree, he could sneeze and knock out Marcin Prachnio here. Roundtree is a really powerful man, and Prachnio has been knocked out in in each of the past 3 fights. So, I foresee Roundtree knocking out Prachnio, no worries at all. Hopefully his gas tank isn't zapped from also missing weight, but eventually making weight.
Next up, Boss in Slack goes punt GPP play on FanDuel, Prachnio or Rodriguez.
Hey, you're really dumpster diving.
I look, if it was a cash play, it's an easy answer for me. Cash, it would be Rodriguez, no question about it.
Yeah.
But since it's GPP, look, if Prachnio wins, it's going to be 100 points. Now, the odds of him winning, under 20%.
Yeah. Okay. So let me throw this out there. Outside the UFC, Prachnio was he was racking up finishes left and right, and his finish rate of his 13 victories sits at 85%. That's an awesome rate for somebody who is priced at 6,900. Khalil Roundtree has been wobbled and rocked in the past and finished. So, there's a chance that he gets caught with a shot, gets put against the cage, kind of is trying to cover up and be defensive, and one sneaks in there, and Prachnio gets a knockout win. But I don't see that happening. In my opinion, I would favor Rodriguez and hope she can keep the fight standing and steal the fight away from Amanda Ribas.
Okay. It makes me, speaking about Amanda Ribas, I got to mention about the tweet I sent to you earlier today. And this came from Guilherme Cruz of MMAfighting.com. So Amanda Ribas weighed in 116 pounds yesterday. According to her father and coach, she's weighing 143 pounds.
Man, that's a lot. That is a lot. If that is the case, she probably has a phenomenal nutrition team behind her, and she's at American Top Team. It makes sense that they have the best in her corner and in her camp. But that is a lot of weight. Now, in order to put on that much weight, you had to drop that much weight. So, man, you don't like hearing that. Yeah, you don't like hearing that if it goes into the later rounds because if you're cutting a tremendous amount of weight, could zap your energy. I still think Amanda Ribas goes in there and completely outclasses Rodriguez. Okay, I'll outstrike you, Rodriguez, and then I'll take you down to make it different and work towards a submission finish. I think Ribas is the real deal. I love it. I love her energy. I know my boy Aiden can't stand her interviews and her energy, but I love it.
She's got star potential written all over.
Yeah.
She could be a star for the UFC. Next up, the Dayman says this is on FanDuel: Chandler, Calderwood, or Hooker and Al-Bazi. So I was taking Chandler and JoJo, or Hooker and Al-Bazi.
Well, I will say that Hooker and Al-Bazi is probably a combination that has more upside with finishing potential, because I don't foresee Calderwood going in there and getting a finish over Jessica Eye. Her strike volume nearly doubles Jessica Eye. Jessica Eye sits at 3.6 significant strikes per minute, and Calderwood is at 6.17 significant strikes per minute. So if this stays on the feet based on the new scoring system, it could rack up some points, but we mentioned that if they don't receive a knockdown or a finish, probably going to get outscored by a grappler. And, that Al-Bazi name at 7,900, he is a grappler, and that's what he's going to look to do against Zhumagulov.
Next up, this comes from Seth. He goes, a fighter you are most worried about being underweight on compared to the field.
Well, I will say,
let me look at the ownership projections here.
Who am I underweight on?
I would say I'm underweight on Amanda Hebos, and I'm definitely overweight on Carlos Jr. and Evelev, definitely on FanDuel.
I will say Evelev for me. I'm nervous about not having enough exposure to him, because I don't think that a stoppage is impossible here. I think that he could definitely accumulate a lot of strikes, takedowns. Maybe Nick Lentz gets desperate and gets submitted. It's possible. It's the 9,400 price tag. It's the value options of this card that kind of has me really channeling my ownership in certain spots where I'm kind of like limited, because I don't have so much faith in a lot of these underdogs. But he's definitely a guy that I'm nervous about being a little underweight on.
Well, I mean, and it's just, with this new DraftKings scoring system, it's just kind of changed my thought process on some things. Like JoJo Calderwood versus Jessica Eye is not really a DK fight for me, just because I believe it's going to be on the feet. Probably not going to be any knockdowns. So you're looking at a decision, just a matter of whoever wins that fight, can they get to 100, total and significant strikes land in that fight? Now, however, on FanDuel, I think it's a little bit of a different scenario based on pricing and when you're trying to fit some people in there. Roundtree or Evelev, and Carlos Jr. or Sanchez?
Roundtree for me, Carlos Jr. as the value play over Sanchez for me.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I feel like I have just way too much Antonio Carlos Jr. I just feel like, but I do think on the FanDuel side of things, you do have to look at Brad Tavares a little bit there. Going over to YouTube to get some YouTube questions in here. This is Miles. He goes, is there really any realistic chance that August can score enough for me in a win in a FanDuel GPP?
I think
I want to say he's $16.
Yeah, he's 16.
Yeah, 16.
On FanDuel, I don't know if you really need to get there, but let's think about what I just said. On FanDuel, we're credited with defending takedowns. Al-Bazi really strives in taking people down and trying to outwork them on the mat. So Zhumagulov's going to have to get back to his feet often or defend takedowns. So on FanDuel, it's kind of sneaky. I just don't know if you really need to do it, because it is a lighter weight class. I think he steals a decision here. I think he outclasses him. I'd probably look at other fighters on FanDuel, but it is sneaky at 16. It's not bad.
Morgan over on Slack says, is pivoting to Hebos from Roundtree crazy in a DraftKings GPP?
I wouldn't say it's crazy, but I probably wouldn't do it. I think that Rodriguez is good if she can keep it on the feet. Yeah. And Hebos isn't going to go out there and probably shoot traditional wrestling double leg takedowns. She has a lot of judo throws, a lot of uchimaras and ways to get her opponent to the mat. So this could actually be a close fight.
Yeah. Next up, Calderwood or Ihu wins. I like JoJo Calderwood in that fight.
Me too. Now, let me ask you a question, Jason. My buddy and I were going back and forth with this, and Jessica Eye somehow, sometimes just finds a way to win. Do you think this is a closer fight than we are, kind of projecting, where we think that Calderwood's output is going to go out there, outpoint Jessica Eye? Do you think that Jessica Eye is a legitimate, underdog candidate at 7,800?
I just don't think she scores enough points. Look at, okay, and I mentioned about this on the strategy show. Let's look at Sue Mudarji.
Yeah.
Landed, 50 total strikes and 50 significant strikes. It's just not enough points.
Yeah. But if all other underdogs don't come through for us, it could just be a situation where you just need a win out of an underdog. Is winning out of the question here for Jessica Eye?
No, it's not out of the question. I just, what in a 3-round decision, which I think we both expect this is going to go 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What is the ceiling for the winner? 85 points?
Oh, yeah. I mean, goodness, you're
75, 80. I mean,
I don't know if they touch 80, truthfully.
The winner could be 65 points.
I think so. I mean, it's takedowns, right? And neither one of them really go for the takedown. If anybody goes for the takedown, it's Calderwood at 1.9 per 15 minutes. I sits at 0.4 per 15 minutes. But she's going to have to do something here because she's just going to keep getting outstruck by Calderwood on the outside. Like Calderwood's just going to pick her apart and hit her with multiple combinations. So she needs to do something. Close the distance, work the clinch. Maybe the new trick is take her down. We'll see.
Of course, I've been mentioning about the questions we're getting in our premium Slack channel. Of course, if you want to get access to that channel, all you got to do is be an Awesemo member where you can chat with myself and Pete or everyone here at awesemo.com. You can just simply tag us. You want to talk to, us about MMA, or maybe you want to hit up, the various people here about NBA, NHL, whatever it may be. When you sign up for an Awesemo Plus member, you do join the community where you do get access to that premium Slack account. It's and I'll tell you, as a NBA DFS player, maybe the best thing you get is News God, who sits there and tells you who's in starting lineups and who's not in the starting lineup. So that is one of the great perks we have as the Awesemo Plus member. Of course, you see the promo code that we do have going on right now. It does expire tonight. Get an MMA Weekly Pass for $2.57 when you use that promo code Connor at checkout. Of course, also be sure to smash that like button. Appreciate all the support we do get here at Awesemo.com. Zane says, what are your 2 favorite value plays on FanDuel? Which $20 plus fighter are you fading or massively underweight on? A value play on FanDuel, Giuliana Pena at $13 is someone that I am targeting. In terms of someone I am maybe underweight on, $20 and up, I would say it's Amanda Hebos.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a FanDuel guy, but I would have to agree with you there. I did one little lineup, and I saw Pena sitting there at 13. I think that's interesting. I do think that Sarah McMahon holds a significant wrestling advantage over Giuliana Pena, but I do think that Pena is, she's tough, and she's gritty, and she's able to scramble out of some situations. And if she's able to kind of reverse a position or sweep Sarah McMahon and get on top, we have seen Sarah McMahon panic tap at times. And I do think the aggressiveness of Pena is something that makes her interesting. So maybe some 7K fighters don't really do it for you this week. I have, a ton of Giuliana Pena at 8,000 on DraftKings, and it does not make me feel good. I think that Sarah McMahon wins the fight, but I do think that it's a close fight.
Yeah, that's the tough thing on DraftKings, that if all favorite comes in, you got to find somebody under 8,000 to put in your lineup, and who might that be? Morgan over in our Slack account says, is that weight gain, if the weight gain is true, wouldn't the grappling be a big advantage for Hebos?
Yep. Yes, it would.
Very short and quick to the point there. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of go down some questions here. Everyone wants to know what you're putting in your proper number 12 tonight. I'll tell you that's a very popular question.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to open the bottle and probably get buzzed. I literally can't drink at all. I'm always training, and, I'm taking the advice of the people, and I got some Coca-Cola, so I'm going to try some of that, but I'm probably going to take a shot and then probably not even finish the actual drink. So, My mom's like, hey, I hear you talking about Takedown City a lot. You should start talking about Puke City. I think you're going to go visit it. I'm like, oh, goodness. She's right. She's right, though. She's right.
Man, Mom with the trash talk. Get our inner Conor McGregor coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Zalogus, McMahon, or JoJo as a final piece in DraftKings Cash?
DraftKings Cash.
Tell you, McMahon with the takedowns. If she wins and she scores those takedowns, that could equal a good score. I might lean McMahon in those three.
I mean, she should be the queen of control time, right? Like, she is amazing at takedowns, amazing at wrestling. She's an Olympian. If she takes down Giuliana Pena, she has been working and competing in some submission grappling tournaments. So I would like to think that her Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has improved and that she could be a sneaky play for control time.
Yeah. One of the comments says, I wonder if Rodriguez has a pretty good chance. He bossed last few fights were against trash. This is one thing I'll say is Rodriguez has had the tougher competition to this point, but this is, I do believe the UFC views this matchup as a potential showcase for Amanda Ribas.
Yeah, I think that, Rodriguez is tough. She's 2-1-2, and not often do you find yourself with 2 draws. Pretty odd, but she usually does really well in a couple rounds and then has really, really poor, performances in round 3 or so, where she's completely dominated and like a fish out of water with her back against the mat. I think that Amanda Ribas is legit. She trains at the best team in the world, in my opinion, American top team who just produces next level talent. I like Ribas quite a bit. If it stays standing, though, Rodriguez, definitely a fighter that I always love to target, and I have picked in the past to think that she would, perform well in an upset. So I have some Rodriguez, definitely way more Ribas, though.
Is Muradov getting overlooked with the lower ownership as a pay-up option on DraftKings?
What's the ownership sitting at? What do you think?
I'm guessing it's, let me see. I had a number. My number was, I was going to say around 25%. It's around there.
I mean, that's not crazy low. I think that Sanchez is one of the best underdogs on the slate. You're running into a situation with this card where you're strapped for talent, right? You're strapped for a lot of underdogs. And how many people are really putting Poirier in their lineups because they want to roster Conor McGregor? That's why you're tuning in. And that's why we're thankful to have you guys, because we're all experiencing another Conor McGregor card. You have limited options. So I think that means, Sanchez is getting some love as an underdog. He has come through. Muradov hasn't been tested against an American wrestler, really. But I think Muradov is a great play. I think he has great hands, and I expect him to get it done.
This is another comment in YouTube. It says, also, does the new scoring benefit McMahon and Carlos Jr., assuming they go the grappling route?
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, you take advances out of the equation. Mat returns are big, where if their opponent stands up and they take them right back down, you're getting another, takedown score. But control time is that new element that we're all trying to get accustomed to. And with the decrease towards strikers, it definitely favors grapplers.
Roy says, can you stack the last 2 fights GPP? My answer is simply no.
Last one. I don't know why we would stack the Hooker Chandler fight,
especially in this new scoring system.
Yeah,
I don't know how you can make that work in a 3-round fight.
I would agree.
I mean, literally, they'd have to be throwing like 9 strikes a minute. I mean, that's not going to happen.
I mean, you would have to get lucky that all other underdogs lost, right? That's the only way that would work.
Yeah. Ryan mentions love Roundtree, but do you think Pacquiao could break the slate with KO? Yeah.
If Pacquiao wins, he breaks the slate 100%, and he just needs to get the respect of Khalil Roundtree. I don't really see that happening. Can happen. I mean, he's knocked out a lot of people in his career, so that's why I put him in, I think, like 5% of my lineups.
Yeah. Lindsay Rodriguez for cheap underdog. Give me Rodriguez in that scenario.
Yeah, Rodriguez for me.
My problem with Lindsay is, I mean, I understand the price point's so low, but my rebuttal to it is, tell me where he's better in this fight.
He's not, but he can somewhat be like an equalizer in certain areas of the fight, where if he can scramble well, maybe his size becomes a problem for Evloev. If you're able to punt down, towards like a bare bones type of guy, you talk about 6,800 lengths, that does allow you to pay up in a lot of other spots that people normally can't. So that savings of going to a 6,800 lengths could get you 2, maybe 3 9K options where everybody's usually strapped for 2 or 1.
Yeah, no question about it. Next up, Connor and Pena or Chandler and Evelev.
First one.
I would go the same one there. I'll say this in terms of the betting. If you are a live betting, I think there are some fights you got to pay attention to. Yeah. I would say one is definitely Andrew Sanchez versus Muradov. If Sanchez gets up early in this fight, you probably need to look at, especially if this fight gets to the third round, live betting Muradov. I would also say if Chandler Hooker gets to the third round, live betting Dan Hooker as well. And if Tavares and Carlos Jr. makes to the third round, live betting potentially Brad Tavares because of whether the gas tank will be there for Carlos Jr.
I think live betting is huge. I wish I could do it. I say it every week. And if you're watching the fights, it's easy to see the swing of momentum. You can tell when one fighter is either fatiguing or starting to lose confidence. You can see the confidence rise in the other fighter. You can see their technique start to land and them start to find success or start listening to their cornermen. So live betting is the way to go with fights. It's the easiest way to make money.
Is stacking done with the new DK scoring?
Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway had a heck of a performance. And I was talking to my buddy earlier, who's a huge UFC fan, and we were talking. He's like, it's kind of crazy that Max broke all the records for significant strikes landed, and he only scored 200 points. Where back in the day, you get a first round KO and all that stuff, you're probably looking at like 120. So it really does discount strikers. So I think that stacking will be less optimal than it has been in the past. I'm sure that there's going to be some instances where it does work, though.
Miles says, I love Tavares on FanDuel. I'm with you there, Miles. But Who scores higher in a win, Tavares or Muradov?
I would say Muradov because he does have KO power. And on 79%.
And on the FanDuel side of it, he's another guy for those takedown defenses.
Yeah. Yep.
Is stacking main event optimal if no underdogs come through?
Yeah, that's the only way it'll work, most likely.
Yeah. Can Rodriguez stay on her feet?
Can Rodriguez stay on her feet? Probably not. A big gust of wind, she'll end up on the mat. And against Amanda Hebos, I think she has the tools to take it to the ground. We'll see, though. Fighters are always improving their game. They're always, implementing good training partners and trying to fix mistakes. So, that's why, in one fight, you'll see a fighter struggle with takedowns. Next fight, they'll address that, their whole camp. I've had to do it in my fights. So growth with fighters is huge. Don't ever think that what has happened in the past will be the standard moving forward.
The question, another one, this is on the Lentz Evelev fight, says it's supposed to go the distance. At 6.8K, how much can Lentz actually score?
It's tough to say. That's like a true prediction.
It's got to get to the ground. You get takedowns, control time.
He's not going to be able to rack up a lot of points with strikes. Okay, so you're banking on some takedowns. You're banking on some reversals. If you were getting points for submission attempts from Nick Lentz of him trying to go for a guillotine on DraftKings, then maybe you could get more points. But I think that the floor for Nick Lentz is super low.
What's our take on Pena over McMahon chances of being optimal?
Yeah, that price range we talk about every week, right? 8,200, 8,000. Very pivotal for a lot of lineups. Allows you a lot of flexibility with the rest of your roster. I have plenty of it. I do favor McMahon in the control department, in the grappling and wrestling department. Pena's scrappy. Pena's able to make a fight ugly. But there's a reason why she was, the winner of TUF, and has had some tough fights in her, in her career in the UFC. But she did just get submitted against Jermaine Durandamy.
Is Pena and Cash too crazy on DraftKings?
Cash, not too crazy. No, it's a close fight. It's like all it takes is a couple flurries to really influence the judges, and next thing you know, McMahon was controlling her, but if Pena's on her back hitting her, and then when she stands up trying to win the first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds of each round, that's the most crucial in the judges' eyes.
Someone asks of how can you check ownership? Simply take advantage of that promo right there you see on the screen. Go to awesemo.com/promos, get an MMA weekly pass for $2.57 by using the promo code Connor. That does expire tonight, so take advantage of that deal right there. Legalize asking us if this lineup is playable in single entry GPP or too chalky. Connor, Hebos, Carlos Jr., Murdov, Chandler, Al-Bazi. I don't mind. I think that could be several people have that lineup, but
I think that's a common build. That's a split. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but I mean, you have to take into consideration somebody's going to pay up for a high 7K fighter, Al-Bazi, thinking that he could do well. And then somebody in that mid 7K range because they don't want to go too low because they like a lot of favorites and they're going to think that Carlos Jr. is the answer. Very well could be. I have plenty of them. That lineup's okay. I don't have a problem with it.
If you want to really separate yourself from the field, don't take anyone in the main event.
Yeah. I mean, fading the main event would be super contrarian. I don't know if I can get behind that because I'm always like.
I think I have one. I think I've got one lineup where I fade the main event. Because look, we're all trying to figure out what is the lineup we can put together that no one else is going to have.
Yeah, it's definitely contrarian. And I'll tell you, the worst part about DFS sports is when you play all the early games or you play the early fights and you're in the money, you're at the top, you're like, yeah, I'm going to be in first place. The next thing you know, there's 2 fights left and every single strike that lands, you start dropping down that ladder and guess what? Should have rostered the main event. So, if me rostering the main event makes me lose money, then I'm okay with it.
Someone goes, does Pete love Chandler in the MVP on FanDuel?
I don't think love, buddy. I think on FanDuel at 18, they priced him up. It's not like you're getting a discount. The fight is super close, but I mean, you're not getting a discount. You're really not. They're giving a lot of respect to Chandler over on the FanDuel platform. On DraftKings, they are giving him respect to him. 7,700. He's good. He's very good. Definitely brings in that wrestling element to the game, and we want to see if Hooker can answer the question. So I don't know if I'd get over to 18 in the captain spot on FanDuel.
Another comment was JoJo's a fantastic DK score. I don't know why people are sleeping on her, but she's my favorite of the lower owned options. So if you look at her in her wins, 95.8 against Lee, 89.5 against Lipsky, 95.8 against Fahea, 131.1 against Laterno. That was a 3rd round TKO. And then a decision against Courtney Casey, 137.8. Now, look, she can be a volume striker.
Right.
That's also under the old DraftKings scoring system. So you're going to lose points. She could do exactly what she did against Lee. It's not going to equal 95 points.
No, it's not. And the thing is like we have seen Calder would be a little volatile in the past where she makes mistakes. And I would not put Calderwood and high fight IQ in the same sentence because I think that she slips up. I mean, for the simple fact of her, deciding to stay active, she basically gave up her shot at the title. And in doing so, she lost a fight that she should have went out there and dominated against Jennifer Maia. But she allowed Maia to implement her game, take her down, and then end up submitting her. So I think that this is it's hard to trust Calderwood, but I understand. I have plenty of her. But let's pump the brakes a little bit. I don't think that she's going to be a slate breaker.
Yeah, and people are mentioning about Lintz's guillotine. I mean, yeah, but I think Evelev keeps this fight on the feet, and he just picks them apart in range. And he just stops takedowns, takedown.
I want to see how far Lentz has dropped off. Right, he is 36 years old. I mentioned about his side bet with Dan Lambert and anybody that's trained at American Top Team. So that adds a little spice to this fight and this matchup where he just really thinks that they threw him under the bus. And he wants to go out there and prove a point against anybody who has that American Top Team camp a part of them. So I'm interested to see the fight. I do favor Evelev quite a bit, though.
Evelev or Roundtree, DraftKings cash?
It's Roundtree for me, man. I mean, Pragnio, you guys know I don't like back-end fighters that have just been knocked out. He's been knocked out in his past 3 straight bouts against a heavy-handed striker that knocked out Gokhan Saki with a beautiful straight left hand down the middle. Give me Roundtree. If Roundtree somehow goes up there and gets the cracked wobbled and potentially finished, that's Pragnio's limited avenue of success for that fight, right? Like that can happen. This is a GPP fight completely. I'm smashing exposure to it. But of my exposure, I think like 90% of it is towards Roundtree. I really believe in his skills.
Before we get to the next question, do us a favor. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button on YouTube. That does help us out a lot as well. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you got to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live. Of course, we got shows all day long. Of course, tomorrow we'll get you ready for the NFL conference title games. Ryan says between Rodriguez, Pacquiao, and Lentz, who's the best GPP?
Pacquiao.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
GPP, I mean, likelihood of winning, slim to none. But when he scores, or if he finally gets a win in the UFC, he's 0-3 in the UFC, it's going to be a knockout. And, he could break the slate at that price.
I saw someone ask you this in Slack earlier today. Is Michael Chandler taking Dan Hooker to take down City tonight?
It's tough to see, right? Because usually I base a lot of my takedown City approach based on stats inside the octagon. And obviously I can't do that because I don't have access to the stats in Bellator. I'm not going to go through every Bellator fight and try to, count every takedown attempted and everything. So,
Why not?
It's tedious, Jason. And I think that
what, are you a busy guy or something?
This week I have that. We've been pumped with fights, and we've had 3 fight cards in 9 days. That's like 7 articles per fight card, 2 shows per fight card. So we've been busy. We're happy to have you guys here. We got 584 people in our stream right now. Do me a favor. It really helps me a lot. Can you just hit that thumbs up for us? Pop your question in chat. We'll get to it. We got like 20 minutes before we have lock time, but I do wonder if Chandler can take down Hooker. I mentioned the stylistic matchup that he brings to the table. Chandler is a true American wrestler that can really dictate the pace of the fight. The difference and the problem in this matchup is the height and length of Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker can keep him at bay with his straight punches and the dangerous knee up the middle. That's going to make Chandler question his entry. I don't want to go in there and try to take down Hooker because I'm going to run right into that knee, and Hooker's the best in the business at throwing a knee up the middle.
Next up, Brad says, do you think Al-Bazi will #break the slate?
I think that he's probably the most common 7K fighter that people are going to put in their lineups. I talk about it all the time. Box score watchers see he just scored 107 points, does have a 92% finish rate. Now, finish rates for fighters' careers are a little worrisome because that means that outside of the early rounds, that maybe they're not so tested, where they haven't been that duration of 15 minutes. Zhumagulov could take him there. Zhumagulov's very tough, and he has been up there against some of the best fighters. So, I'm a little underweight to Al-Bazi, and I'm kind of nervous about it.
Sean says, okay, with no love for the underdogs, what are the chances it's a 5 fighters that win you the $200K on DraftKings?
It's really hard to say, right? That's kind of like a hindsight 2020 question. We'll have to see how the slate goes and how things happen. But I think that you just have to get the mid value correct. I think, 9K options are 9K options for a reason, because the likelihood is that they go in there and that they get it done. How you separate yourself is always in the middle of the pack, but also on the low end. Where are you getting different? Where is a ton of ownership coming into? Ton of ownership right now is coming into Carlos Jr., okay? Maybe Tavares is going overlooked. That's not really mid value. 8,700, that's that kind of upper echelon, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I'm with you exactly on that one. Next up, Pena or Al-Bazi?
Why you got to do that to me? Oh, man. I guess I'll go Pena. I guess.
I would say Al-Bazi, DraftKings, Pena, FanDuel.
Perfect.
Calderwood or McMahon?
Okay, so, depends on the platform. If we're on DraftKings, control time could be huge for McMahon. Takedowns, mat returns, all that could be huge for McMahon. If we are on, FanDuel, it does seem like, FanDuel favors strikers slightly more than grapplers. And, maybe Jessica I does want to take Calderwood down because she saw how Jennifer Maia had success. Calderwood could stuff some takedowns, get some high volume striking going. It's a close one. It really is a close one. What's your say on that situation?
I would lean McMahon on DraftKings just because of the takedowns. Yeah. I think Calderwood's kind of a in a way a little bit of a mid-tier safe play for me at $15 on FanDuel.
Yeah.
I don't like, someone brought the question basically saying, with the new DraftKings scoring, isn't Calderwood a fade? To me, it is.
Yeah, I feel like if you were to X off a fight Jason Floyd is Xing off the Calderwood Eye fight. I think that's kind of what, like, you tried to
might have
force
happened in Fantasy Cruncher. That might have happened.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did. Wait, can DraftKings? I unclicked both of them.
Wow. Okay.
I just because I look at it and say, okay, at 8,400, I can go $100 less at 8,300 and get Zalagas. I think he could score higher than she does. If I wanted to go to 8,200, Sarah, man, I think she's got a higher ceiling there. Like, I just look at the fighters around that territory and say, there's fighters with a higher ceiling than what Calderwood or I have.
If you spend $100 more, you get Dan Hooker. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. You know,
you're a hater, Jason. You're a hater.
Look, maybe I'm getting proven wrong, but under this new DraftKings scoring system, you agree with this. You do.
I can't say that. I mean, I don't feel good about it. It's definitely
okay. Let me ask you this: do you have more than 15% shares on either one of them?
Let me see. I do. Oh boy, that might be a mistake. I do. I have quite a bit of Calderwood.
Like, don't tell me you're not over like 30%, are you?
Yeah, yeah.
Pete's been getting that proper 12 a little early tonight.
No, I mean, I think it's because I limited exposure to some fighters, and I also limited my underdogs, you know, so I'm hoping that it's a lot of favorites coming through.
Yeah. Let's see here. D Smith says, how many points to expect in a Tavares win? How many needed to be worth 8,700?
I think 90.
I mean, look, remember, he has been a decision machine in the UFC.
Yep.
But I could see him getting a third round finish in this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because what we have seen is Antonio Carlos Jr., where he's so dominant in the grappling and jiu-jitsu department that cardio really abandons him. And, you know, when he's fatigued, and let me tell you, when anybody's fatigued, they're close to being out of there. And, you know, you start to throw some body shots or head shots and make them question their will. And I think that Tavares is very sneaky here, as long as he, you know, avoids getting his back taken. I think that's really the big worry for me, right? Like, I'm not worried about Tavares being on his back. I'm worried about Carlos Jr. trying to set up that rear naked choke.
I just wish our DFS salaries were in relation to what the betting odds are right now, as opposed to what the betting odds were earlier this week. Bears23 in our premium Slack account says good value on FanDuel, which I think he's talking about Maria Rodriguez. I would say, yeah, I like the value there. She's like $9, I want to say.
Yeah, I mean,
$9.
$9. I mean, women's MMA super volatile from DFS, but I think that's only on the low end, and I think that Amanda Hebos is like that top tier, not really ranked yet, I don't believe, but she's going to be.
D Smith says pivot from Arman to Tavares for leverage and single entry. Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Okay, so like, no, we're not talking about Arman Sarukian here a lot. 8,900 is because we have so many nice 9,000 options. You know, Tavares 8,700, decision machine 41%. The only worry with Sarukian here at 8,900 is the fact that he missed weight, right? Like, he missed weight. What went wrong? Now, I will tell you that probably with Sarukian and Khalil Roundtree, it's due to a miscalculation with travel. And, you know, when you're fighting overseas, yes, you're a professional, but, you know, things happen. At least Khalil was able to make the weight. Sarukian was still weighing in at 157 pounds, so he did not make the limit. And he did look a little zapped and fatigued in the face. I can notice that from fighters I've been there. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as the fight progresses, if Rivola, who seems to have an endless gas tank and crazy willpower, if he's still there, things could get interesting. I just don't. I mean, Rivola throws bombs and could get knocked out still here against Sarukian, who's so technical. I really favor Sarukian.
Of course, we're about 12 minutes away before a lock here. We'll try to do some rapid fire questions here in a moment. Of course, if you ever do miss our strategy shows, whatnot, they are a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to awesemo.com/podcast to get the links to the podcast that you are looking for. You know, looking for that UFC MMA podcast with myself and Pete. You can click that link there, awesemo.com/podcast, and be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review. That really does help us out a lot, as well as we give one of you will have a chance to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you leave a 5-star review there. Let's mention some questions we got here over in Slack. Zalagas or McMahon, DraftKings GPP. McMahon for me.
Yeah, agree.
Don't Embiid my status says, might have missed this, but on DraftKings, which, if any matches, are you okay with stacking in single entry? 0.
Main event, only thing.
Yeah. But I think Connor's going to win round 1, so that's why my answer is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, it says, Pete, I missed your take on McMahon Pena. What do you think?
It comes down to McMahon making some adjustments to her grappling. She's always had amazing wrestling, and a lot of wrestlers are a little too confident that all they need is wrestling. And I think we have seen her start to go out of her element, start to compete in some jiu-jitsu tournaments. So I think McMahon has tried to, round out her game and be a complete fighter. Should have a massive advantage in the wrestling department, and control time is something to note here at 8,200. Pena is a live dog, if you even want to call it that, slight dog. But I think that McMahon's in a good spot.
Roundtree or Sarukian DraftKings GPP?
Ooh, Roundtree.
DraftKings GPP core / targets.
Main event, McGregor.
Roundtree.
Yep. I have a decent amount of, who do I have? I have a decent amount of Zumagulov because it's a low AK fighter that I feel like he's going to get a sneaky win.
Yeah. Thoughts on Connor, Poirier, Sarukian, Chandler, Roundtree, Carlos Jr. for DK Cash and GPP. Well, first off, we've said this now multiple times. I mean, look, if you want to stack the main event, your thought process has to be, you think this fight's going 4 or 5 rounds. If this fight's under 15 minutes, stacking's not going to work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a given. I don't hate it. And don't try to view. Sometimes my cash lineups do better in GPPs than some GPP lineups. Like, you have to, I always put my lineups in both spots. I think with cash, you just take what's safe and what's easiest. But sometimes people get too cute in GPPs and they try to be too contrarian. And if you just kind of go by the book and ride that wave, you can actually take down a GPP with a cash lineup.
Roundtree has the highest upside, but will also be higher owned. I don't think I would agree that he has the highest upside.
I think he has the highest upside for a person to get us that quick win finish bonus. I mean, we're talking about that new adjustment to scoring system of plus 25 points. You talk about Conor McGregor and Khalil Roundtree of 2 guys that could go out there and get it done for you. I think it's close. I would say that Roundtree is one of the best.
But it's still, DraftKings is so grappler based though. If someone goes out there, gets multiple takedowns, high amounts of control time, I think they have a higher upside.
Not over a quick win bonus, I don't believe. I still feel like a quick win bonus.
I did the math with you earlier this week. If you say a Conor win under 6 seconds, 10 total strikes, knockdown, 25 bonus points, that'd be 129 points.
It's good.
I think you could have a grappler can get just as much at a lower rate too.
If a grappler controls every second of each round, you're looking at 27 points because it's 3.03 points per second. It's interesting. It adds that element, but grapplers that mix in ground and pound are something that can kind of take the scoring to a different level. Blanketing people, not so much. Yes, it does help, but you need like a Habib in there to get you ground and pound strikes as well.
Miles says, are you guys fully fading Lentz? My answer is yes. I just don't see how he gets the job done.
Let me see. Did I fully fade him? Yeah, I fully faded him. Sorry, Lentz.
Yeah.
Fully faded you.
Corey says, can you stack the Booker Chandler fight for DraftKings cash or GPP? The answer is no. Is there any chance that Lentz wins? Under 10%.
Guillotine.
Yeah. Do you guys have any Poirier, since you guys say you don't like the underdogs? I do have some Poirier. And I want to say I'm about 20% lineups.
I got a lot of Poirier, and it's just because stranger things have happened. And I told you how I'm prioritizing the main event, co-main event. I'm sitting at about 30% Poirier. And some of those lineups do have a lot of Conor McGregor. So I am kind of banking on it going the later rounds. Jake says
Pacquiao and McGregor or Sarukian and Poirier on DraftKings.
Ooh. Sarukian and Poirier. And who's the first one?
Pacquiao and McGregor. I think I would go Sarukian and Poirier.
Yeah, man. I'm not really believing in Pacquiao. What do I got? 3% of my lineups.
Rick says, outside of Roundtree, who's throwing them bungalows?
You know McGregor is. You know, I think Sarukian and Frivola could be slept on.
I was just thinking that one.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch Frivola, right, you're like, yeah, he has been dropped and he's been knocked out by Polo Reyes, but you know, if you look at his footage, he throws heat. Like, he really tries to go out there and finish everybody. He's just not the most skilled, and you know, it's a fight to target for sure.
Top 2 value plays on DraftKings.
Carlos Jr. and Michael Chandler.
John says, does age really become a factor in women's MMA considering the lack of damage over the course of their careers?
Lack of damage is huge. You always wonder, when's it going to really start to catch up with them, especially when it comes to taking significant strikes. Age is different for every fighter. I'm getting up there. I'm 30 years old, and I don't like to believe in that whole age thing. But, you know, you have to consider McMahon is 40 years old, tons of wear and tear on her body.
Yeah. Mike says, he goes, I think the new scoring benefits the women. They don't usually have as much heavy striking as the men. Now all their strikes count.
I kind of thought about that, Jason, because, right, for most
of a ton of strikes though.
Right. I mean, there are some, but like, you know, for a lot of the male fighters, a lot of what they're throwing, everything's considered significant. Whereas for the women bouts, it kind of goes like half. You know, whatever they throw is usually cut in half of what they consider significant. So it definitely gives them a boost. And that was my initial read on the scoring system. We just haven't had a high volume female bout in the UFC since this new scoring system came through to really see if that's going to be the case.
Rob, he says, he goes about Sarukian, and he goes, if you put Sarukian in your lineup, will you be given 0 points, or will you include the Frivola matchup? If you go right on DraftKings, right at the very top, it'll say Matt Frivola and Armin Sarukian will still accrue fantasy points in a newly scheduled fight. Yeah,
don't have to worry about that. I mean, the UFC was able to salvage that fight. We got 5 minutes to lock. We have 500 people watching us right now. Before you guys start to head out of here, please smash that thumbs up. We'll answer a few more questions.
AJ says, what takes over the fight, Hooker's striking or Chandler's wrestling?
It's a great point. I mean, if Hooker's able to defend takedowns, I think that's more than anything. Like, the striking's always going to be there for Hooker. It's, can he answer, you know, the Chandler wrestling attempts?
Chandler or Carlos Jr.?
Chandler.
Pacquiao, Rodriguez, or Lentz, which one in DraftKings GPP? For some reason, I think we all have a good chance to be optimal with the upset win.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that Rodriguez is probably the easiest person in there to win a decision. Pacquiao just needs to land a lucky shot. That's the only way he wins that.
How many underdogs are usually optimal MMA lineup?
2. At least 2.
Yeah, 2. And that's what makes this card hard, is finding those 2 fighters under 8K that you do intrigue you. FanDuel cash one more spot, Bravo or Rodriguez? I go Rodriguez. Only picking 2 lines and have no Evlev or Hebus. Might just swap lineup, one with Rios and one with Lentz.
Yeah, you lost me at Lentz. But I mean, I don't hate it, right? Like, if you like a lineup and you want to get weird. That's how you do the unthinkable and you take down a GPP.
16 limes saying I have 100% main event. What's the minimum Poirier limes I should have in y'all's opinion? 20, 25%?
Yeah.
Best cheap play today?
Probably Chandler. I mean, you talk about a guy who was the champion in his division over in another promotion in Bellator. Comes in, tough matchup, but definitely is skilled.
More points, Rodriguez or Poirier?
Gosh. I say Poirier. I hope.
Boss Bro says Frivola and GPP.
Or Frivola only in the GPP. I hope you don't put Frivola in a cash.
It's a total punt play. I don't see it working out, but I'm not, look, I think when you're creating multiple lineups to have him in there, say 10% of your lineups, yeah, not a problem with that.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to try to get a couple of quick ones more in here before we get out of here. Who scores higher, Lentz or Pena? To me, Pena.
Pena. I don't think that's close.
Yeah. Jared says Jessica I first round knockout. I don't see that one happening.
Jessica I has a 27% finish rate. I mean, if she whoever asked that question, if she goes out there and gets a first round KO, go buy a lottery ticket. I don't see it happening.
Sarukian or McMahon in DraftKings late slate?
Sarukian. I like Sarukian. I think he has better potential to get a finish than McMahon, despite her control time.
Yeah. Someone said ESPN Plus is crashing due to pay-per-view buys. That's a good thing. Well, not really a good thing because I still got to buy the pay-per-view. So hopefully.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So the next thing everybody should do after leaving this show is go purchase the pay-per-view so you don't run into any issues. Get it done.
Remember when you had that issue last year? I remember that.
Remember? I had to buy it in Spanish or something. That's the only thing that would work.
Sometimes, muting the sound is not necessarily a bad thing. Is Tavares a good DraftKings GPP play? I say yes, based on ownership.
Contrarian.
Yeah, he's very low owned. Best captain play for cash game late slate. I would say Connor still.
Yeah, I think Connor's a nice spot right there.
Yeah.
I would love to see an upset, but I think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening. But we are now just about to hit lock here. So good luck to everyone tonight. Of course, myself and Pete, we will be in the premium Slack channel tonight for the Awesemo Plus subscribers. And of course, we've had that great deal going on all week with that Connor promo. Hopefully you took advantage of that promo. Of course, we will not be here next week. No UFC card next week. But then we've got a card in 2 weeks on Super Bowl Eve, the Overeem and Volkov card. And that'll be the first of at least 6 straight weeks of UFC cards.
Hold on. We're not here next week, Jason.
No, there is no UFC card next week, bro.
I did not know that. Well, guys, thank you for joining us on this little grind of a week and a half that we've been. We have awesome support. Can't thank you guys enough. You really, really help us out. We really appreciate it. Hit us up on Twitter. Show us those screenshots. Talk to us in the Slack chat for Awesemo premium members. And, can't wait to see the card. And everybody have a good night.
And of course, I always say, hit us with those screenshots. We always love seeing those screenshots after the fights are over. So good luck to everyone tonight. And that is going to wrap it up for Live Before Lock. Me and Pete will be back the first week of February for the strategy show for Volkov versus Overeem.